of listeners and viewers. His ability to create poetry and reinvent historical facts in his Kika-Kola mesmerizes the listeners and slowly and meticulously reconstructs history and explores the country's regional and international geopolitics. And that is my Kika tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome our guest today, the Kika himself.
See you. Thank you.
Before our presenters start giving their inputs to us, we want to know all of them and to have them seated where they're supposed to be seated. So our next guest of honor that I would like to be introduced is none other than Mr. Martin Karadi, and I call upon Ms. Nazarene McKenna to tell us a little more about Mr. Martin, that we may work out so that we can officially welcome him to this podium.
I'm not Nazarene. So Mr. Martin Karadi is a consultant for the Communication and Information CI sector of the UNESCO, multi-sectoral regional officer for Eastern Africa in Nairobi. Before joining the UNESCO team in Nairobi, he graduated from the Universitat Pompeu Fabra. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. In Barcelona, Spain, with a master's in political philosophy, for which he wrote a thesis on the ontological interpretation of Spinoza's philosophy by Gilles Deleuze and Antonia Negri. Again, forgive me for the pronunciation. Martin also has a bachelor degree in political sciences and ethics from the University of Toronto, Canada. During his time at the University of Toronto, Martin had a chance to study for one semester at the Sciences for Paris and to follow a summer course at Oxford University. You're most welcome.
A little clap for
our next guest of distinction is none other than our own Reverend Father Stephen Makagutu. Sister Anne, please come and help us to welcome Reverend Father.
Thank you so much. I'm here to welcome Father Steve. Father Steve is our own. Where to? Yes, Father Steve Makagutu, a member of the Capuchin Friars, an alumnus of Tangaza University, School of Theology, and currently a master's student at Catholic University of Africa. Father Steve is also a member of the Justice and Peace and Integrative of Creation for the Capuchin Congregation, and currently works at the Vatican Embassy in Kenya as the assistant of the permanent representative of the Holy See to UNEP. Makofi kwake. Father, most welcome. We are happy to have you at Tangaza today.
Our fourth guest and our last guest, last but not least by any means, is Mr. David Munene, and I would like to welcome, is it you, Nazarene? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, welcome Nazarene to tell us a little more about Mr. David.
Thank you very much. Mr. David is one of the two democratically elected regional facilitators for the UN Environment Program, Major Group Sustainability in Africa. He is also the Africa Programs Manager at the Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability, or SINESA, and he sits in the board of directors of the Southern Africa Faith Communities Environment Institute. He's a computer scientist and he has been working with young people across Africa and beyond since 2019 to address biodiversity loss, climate change, and plastic pollution. He's a yearly fellow and the first president of the Kenya National Chapter for the Ecosystems-Based Adaptation for the Food Security Assembly. He has been involved in environmental policy and negotiations since 2014, including at the UN Assembly, UNFCCC, COP, and the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, and was paneled in the UNITAR trainee program on negotiation and drafting skills. Together with his co-regional facilitator, David organized and facilitated the 2022 and 2023 regional consultative meetings of the UNEP, Africa ahead of the 18th and 19th ordinary sessions of the AMCEN in Dakar and Addis Ababa, respectively. David was lead author for the Tangaza booklet, which is amplifying the voices of young people of faith in Kenya in the post-2020 global biodiversity frameworks discourse, and has authored environmental content for the Jesuits Living Magis app. That's a very, very rich profile. We hope someday someone will read ours like that. Welcome, David.
A better clap for...
Now, as you can see, we are all set. Are you ready now?
Yes.
To take off? Yes. Now, I let our able technical team and pilots to get us going now. I take back seat now. Another clap for Father, please.
Yes, so today we have very resourceful people among us, guys. And make sure you take notes, yeah? Make sure you connect, make sure you learn something, and you never know really what might come out of this, because currently we all know we are undergoing an environmental crisis, and we really need journalists to step up. We really need us to take the chance, to take the gaps and fill them. And therefore this is an opportunity to learn how to go about it, and I hope that you guys are going to enjoy as we go to our next phase, which is individual presentations. So all of you will bless us with a piece of something that you have prepared before we proceed to the panel discussion.
As you all know, journalists are people who work with notebooks, pens, cameras, and in this case now, we are referring to them as experts. But we are the journalists in making. So I hope you have your notebooks, you note something down, because the future relies on us. We are the future and we are the present. And the impact that we make through development stories on climate change will be able to sensitize the whole world towards a better future. So without further ado, our first speaker for today is one and only Mr. Linus.
Thank you very much, our very able event managers, MCs. Can we put a very warm round of applause? Father Dominic and my colleagues here at the front and the entire Tangaza team. First, let me say thank you very much for inviting us to be part of this special day. And I'll start by just congratulating you and the institution on the launch of a very modern state-of-the-art studio that I just visited a short while ago. I was just assuring the institution that that studio is as good as they come. It's a broadcast quality. So don't look at it just as a training facility. I think it's something that will come in handy in many ways. I had already insinuated that for the last 3 elections now, your neighbors here, the Catholic University, the hall there, has been home to presidential debates. And for me, when I was touring the studio today, I thought, hey, here is an extra studio for our work. So I want to say well done on that. It's also a pleasure being at the Institute of Social Communications. And just by looking at how much has changed in media training, you know, in the older days, the emphasis would be on mass communication. But here at Tangaza now we talk of social communication. Because of the transitive nature of communications. Because there was a time mass communication was completely difficult and impossible. Let's not forget that communication actually used to include messengers walking on foot to pass a message from one place to another. So to create a mass of that, for one to be a mass communicator, in the old days you needed to have a number of messengers who will carry messages in different directions. But time and technology has done its magic. And time and technology has squeezed the globe into what we now call a village. We are all in a global village. We are interconnected, which now raises the need for social communication. It is indeed a pleasure to be part of your very critical theme today of journalism and the environment. When Sister Anne contacted me and said this is the topic that we want to discuss today, I responded without hesitation that it will be my great pleasure to be here to have that conversation. Because journalism and the environment have become intertwined. Environment has walked into the newsroom in a way that it never used to. You see, in regular journalistic training, focus used to be on just about 3 or 4 areas. One was called the general beat reporting, where general beat reporters are the one who do politics. They'll also walk around and find a road accident and report about that. They'll also report about day-to-day happenings. There's a function at Tangaza College and they will report that. The general beat reporter works unscheduled. They are the reporters that meet events as they come. That used to be the focus. The second area used to be what we call business or economic journalism, where now we expect a bit more of depth and specialization on the area of the economy. And then the third area used to be sports. Sports, again, is a specialist area because you'll have to train journalists to deliver as per their expertise. And that's why even within sports, you'll find that a reporter who does athletics is not necessarily the expert when it comes to rugby. So sports actually became the first area of specialization for journalism. The last area, because journalism is about what is not usual out there. So when communities started fighting about sources of water, when communities started having conflicts about grazing fields, when ethnic groups started having conflicts about the areas where they can perform their cultural, traditional rites, environment started becoming an issue in journalism. Before that, nobody knew it was such a big issue. Many, many conflicts have been fought and have been caused by environmental issues. And with time, because of that, newsrooms and journalism started becoming sensitive to that. And that's why today we have specialist desk for environmental reporting. I must indicate here that environmental reporting is actually a very dangerous space. In journalism terms, it's considered the second most dangerous wing of journalism after war reporting. You know, reporters go to war, we can send them to Afghanistan, Congo, and these other conflict hot zones. The second most dangerous thing you can do to a journalist is to send them to an environment-related conflict. And in the last 10 years alone, the statistics indicate that about 34 journalists, environmental journalists, have been killed while covering environmental issues. The globe has been mapped where it's most dangerous to report on environmental issues. One of the most dangerous places is actually in Brazil, the Amazon area, because it's a highly, highly political issue there. There are so many conflicts that go on there between the government and communities, intra-communities, environmentalists versus policymakers, and all that. It became particularly dangerous during the era of former President Bolsonaro, who just finished, who was defeated by Luis Inacio da Silva the other day. Because the government of Bolsonaro was pushing the limits in terms of expanding farming into forest land. Now, environment issues are not just dangerous for journalists alone. They're even more dangerous for environmental activists. Many of them have been killed because of being in that line of duty. Because environment is about resources. It's about water. It's about soils. It's about land. And those issues have, throughout humanity, been great causes of conflict. So in journalism, we now emphasize on also providing hostile environment training to journalists who go to report on environmental issues. They are given the same training as those who go to report in the war fronts are given. And luckily, in the journalistic space, there are institutions that have come up. It's about partnerships. We work with UNEP, UNESCO, in some cases, on issues around environmental change, climate change, and also safety of journalists while reporting in those zones. So this is what has happened now, and in fact, in the Kenyan context, we have most newsrooms now that have introduced an environmental desk. It goes without saying that Kenya, just the other day, because of hosting the Africa Climate Summit SCS, the issue of environment and climate change was again raised to different levels in the newsrooms. You may have noticed on our own platform at Citizen TV, what we did for the entire period of the Africa Climate Summit, we changed the look of the screen. We did this for two reasons. One is to dedicate the platform to the issues that are being addressed at the SCS, and two was to raise public awareness on climate change. Now, raising public awareness remains one of the duties of journalism. I know we all start with the three: inform, entertain, and educate. But that too mutates into something bigger. Each of those, whether it's education, has to give birth to a number of other issues, whether it's analysis or awareness creation, engaging public in creating public participation. And that's what we did at Citizen TV when we went green. You may have noticed that our screens, instead of the traditional red and white and orange, we just went green. Because with that, we wanted to send the message to the public that climate change and environmental issues do matter. We did this because, again, you may also realize how low the awareness levels are out there. For a long time, especially here in Kenya, there was very little connection between our lives and the environment. People used to see climate change as a foreign item, something that happens somewhere out there. It's not about us. And look, this time, as recent as yesterday, we are talking about climate change issues such as the El Nino rains. We are even talking about how do we prepare for that. And what has the government done? It turns to the media, mass media, to also help create that awareness. And that's why we saw the Deputy President and the government agencies yesterday taking time to just explain this is how we intend to mitigate the impact of El Nino. So the role of the media in environmental matters is so critical. So critical that in future, this is my own projection, environment will overtake politics as a major issue of concern to consumers of media content. Which is why media institutions will have to continuously invest in knowledge and skills in environmental and climate change issues. Which is why you will see a lot of media houses now having full-time dedicated departments of environment and climate change. And media cannot do that alone. In just connecting the topic of the day, it's about partnerships. It's about media using linkages with others in those sectors. Climate change experts, environment experts, in creating an environment that then enables the consumer to understand the issues at hand. I want to appreciate this topic as well with a personal story. There is a young reporter in my second year of reporting as a journalist. There came the story of Karura Forest, which is just on the fringes of Nairobi. I am the reporter that broke the story of the destruction of Karura Forest. And actually it was a very interesting way of how it happened. I visited a friend over the weekend. I was off duty, and this friend lives on the Ruaka side of town. And on our way there, I noticed trucks that were coming out of the forest with logs, piles of logs, from the forest. And I know indigenous trees. This is from my background because I come from the forested end of Narok County, a place called Kilgoris, which is green, it's very, very forested. So all through my childhood, I interacted with indigenous trees. I know an indigenous tree. So I saw one, and I could tell this is a tree that we value so much back home. In the Maasai culture, it's actually a ceremonial tree. You do not cut it. You do not cut that tree. So my first instinct was traditional. That how do they cut that tree? It is sacrilegious down at home to cut that tree. We call that tree all the time, in the Maasai language. I have never known the English name for that. The environmental team in the room will have it. But it's a sacred tree used for ceremonies and all that. And I saw it, and I saw the leaves hanging from the back of the truck. And I asked my friend, you mean in Nairobi they have this type of trees? And we decided to just follow the trail. We drove off the trail, and we saw that the forest was actually being cut down. It was a Sunday. On Monday, I was back on duty. On Monday, I requested my editor to give me a camera so that I chase a story in Karura. So he did graciously give me a camera, and we went to the forest, to Karura Forest. And we went to the mouth, the same exit that I saw the truck coming out the previous day. And this time we met hostility. There were security guards. I remember the name they had was Kausha guards. Kausha in Kiswahili means dry it up, like stop it on its tracks. And we asked them, we just want to see the forest. The first team made the blunder of allowing us to go in. We went in and filmed quite extensively. One of the images we had was that of a power saw, you know, eating into a very big trunk of a very old tree. It became the signature shot of our story, because the power saw was even struggling, because this must have been an ages-old tree by the time to be cleared. So we continued filming. We thank the innocence of the Kausha guards and the innocence of the supervisor, because they had not known the impact of us filming to this project that they are carrying out. So we continued filming, and we actually had more than 2 hours on the ground. And we went around and saw how much of the space has been cleared. The space is actually just behind where the current United Nations offices are. So we filmed, and then we went back to my editor, and I told him, this is what we have. I think we have a big story. And the editor asked me, who is the proprietor of the project? Because we established a number of things. The foreman innocently showed us the plan. We had this elaborate plan of how houses would come up in the place. So we filmed that too. And now the next thing was to establish who are the owners, who is the proprietor. And we ended up in Parliament, because that is where the main person behind the project was. So we found him and confronted him and asked him about the destruction of the forest. You have the requisite licenses to eat into forest land. And he was very hostile to us. He did not agree to the interview. We went back to my editor and told him that, you know, there's a problem. He's not talking to us. And he decided and agreed that we break the story as is. Because we now run the story, we now run the risk of the story being killed. I think in your journalism classes you've been told about the story being killed. No, it's not spiked. There's a big difference between spiking and killing. A brown envelope can actually kill a story. It can spike it, but generally kill. Because kill means it won't even make it to the regular processes of submission. So it won't even make it to the newsroom docket, where you can see that this is listed for broadcast. That's killing. Spiking means you come, you've done it, and the editor feels it's not good enough, spikes it. Francis will tell you that spike actually used to be a physical spike. It was a very sharp spike next to the desk of the editor, and they put it that way. When you see it there, when you see your copy there, forget it. Just go and do something else, or wait for the next assignment. So our fear was killing of the story. Because what power does, what powerful news subjects do, is they kill stories. They don't spike them. They call the owners of the station, for example, they'll threaten the editor, and that story will die. And this was attempted in the case of my Karura story. So we decided it has to run there and then. And we ran the story on that same Monday evening as the lead story. I actually did 2 stories. One showing what had happened and narrating how I went to the forest and how we saw what we saw there. And the second story was an analysis that I was required to do, an explanation, explaining the context, including explaining where Karura Forest is, whether it's protected by the forest. The owners of the project made no mistake. We couldn't go past the gate. If you've seen a picture of Wangari Maathai hair being pulled, that was the day we were at that gate. Those are the Kausha guards. So we reported about that. But now, the next day, the debate expanded. The University of Nairobi students joined in, and now it became street demonstrations in Nairobi. So there were protests on the streets, and Wangari Maathai and our team became bigger. They were arriving in trucks in Karura. They overpowered the Kausha guards. We went in there, and they took over the cleared space. There were bulldozers that were clearing the area, and one of them was set on fire in our own presence right there. I remember asking Wangari Maathai, because in journalism you are still supposed to be objective, complete, non-partisan about the issues that are played. So for me, both the destruction of the forest and the destruction of property that we are witnessing were real issues. So I asked Wangari Maathai why her supporters and why the protesters had set some equipment on fire. And she told me, this was on camera, I've not seen that. I can see smoke from where I am. I think something is on fire. I hope it's not the forest. And that is how that portion of Karura Forest was saved. It was saved, and I gave that long story because that is the impact of journalism on the environment. Journalism can actually save the environment. I can imagine if we never broke the story, would the Green Belt movement know that so much is going on in Karura Forest? And 2, would the public that joined in the debate have known how bad that is? And so I want to finish with that very long story. Journalism has a positive impact on the environment. And what I discovered even from my own experience is environment is also about passion and understanding. Environment coverage is not an objective space. A journalist has to totally care for the environment, totally care about the issues that are at play. So you can't have the same heart as you do with politics, where you are non-partisan. An environmental journalist is totally partisan. They are pro-environment. They are pro-conservation. And that's why they pay the ultimate price. That's why they put together with environmental activists. For that long story, and for the event and the coverage of Karura Forest, I won my second Continental Journalistic Award, the CNN Africa Journalist of the Year Environment category. And on that note, let me thank you. Thank you.
Wow. to give a round of applause to Mr. Linda. Wow, that was a great story. And Timona, what is one thing you have learned from the whole discussion?
And you know, when he was speaking, I nilijita mkutano, as they commonly say. I called my learnings.
Well, for me, I think you have reminded me that we have so much impact as journalists. We carry so much impact as journalists. So as we step out here into the field, just know you have a great opportunity to push things forward, because the Greenbelt movement came as a result of his story. And before we transition on to our next speaker, we want to do a small activity and proceed to gain knowledge. Now this activity is very interesting. You do the opposite of what we say.
Yes.
It is called opposite. Do the opposite. So Timona,
yes.
Laugh. Yes. Now we want you to do the opposite of what we say, including our guest today. So when I say, I'm saying a story, when you hear a key verb, you do the opposite of what it says. One day, I was sitting down. And then, the leader told me to stop, you know.
He told me to stop sitting down. However,
You can stop sitting down.
you can stop sitting down.
Do not confuse us. Anyway, we can try another round.
At least now you've understood how it works.
Yeah, so you do the opposite of what we say. So, we will still go with the same notion. One day I was walking to the forest and I found people laughing. I wondered, what is so funny? Yeah? So I also joined them and decided to sit among them. And when I was seated, I heard them say, let us not clap our hands. Do not clap your hands. Because when you clap your hands, people cry. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a seat.
So our next speaker is Mr. Martin Karadi. And with this, because we're also fighting time, we request every speaker that is going to speak to limit yourselves to only 10 minutes. And we will not shout that your time is over, but you will notice we are signaling in a way or the other. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, let us appreciate him as he goes to give us. We are also being encouraged to maximize our well of wisdom today. And if you have any questions regarding any topic they're mentioning, anything you'd like to clarify, we will be having a Q&A session right after the discussions. So note it down and we will get back to it, all right? Thank you.
Should I start? Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would just like to thank Tangaza University for enabling this important discussion on journalism and the environment. I was invited today to talk about why environmental issues, especially climate change, have become the focal point of UNESCO's concerns. Why journalism has a vital role to play in building sustainable societies by raising awareness on environmental issues, and present the Promoting Excellence in Education in Africa initiative, in which Tangaza University plays a key role, and which we hope will have a significant which will be a significant step closer towards enabling an even more strengthened, sustainable, and resilient Pan-African media environment in the region. I'll try to keep brief because I wrote a lot of stuff, but let me first start with a brief presentation of UNESCO and what the organization does. So as you may know, UNESCO was founded in 1945 with the aim of promoting world peace and sustainable societies through international cooperation, the establishment of norms, and capacity building in the areas of education, art, science, and culture. We believe that promoting peace in the mind of man is essential for the promotion of peace and the sustainable development of all societies. One of UNESCO's main functions is the establishment of norms, which recognize the values of human rights expressed in the Declaration of Human Rights, and which are meant to guide actors' decisions and actions in ethical ways. To do so, we established conventions for consultations with member states, such as the Declaration of Windhoek on promoting an independent and pluralistic African press, or the Tashkent Declaration on Universal Access to Information. We also issue recommendations in consultation with local actors and specialists, such as on the use of AI and climate reporting in Africa, which I think the publication came out in 2013, and we'd like to review it maybe this year and next year, to update it with the current state of the event. Our conventions and recommendations are elaborated in consultation with local actors and experts to ensure that they reflect local environments and local needs. Another important part of UNESCO's work is the sensibilization of member states to human rights issues and advocacy towards implementing constitutional, legislative, and institutional dispositions toward their protection and affirmation. Finally, UNESCO conducts various capacity building campaigns to equip governmental, civil society, and local actors with the capacity of promoting these rights and contributing to sustainable societies and resilience in the best way possible. Human rights and ethical principles have a universal essence. That is, they supersede the present and are common to all through their intangible human value. But located in various contexts, these values and human rights will take different forms. All these forms compose the universal essence of these rights and principles and must be included in their understanding. That is why UNESCO employs a bottom-up approach to all its initiatives, where the local informs the global, and the global supports the local through collection of knowledge from all over the world and synthesization adapted to local context. Now, talking about the global to the local and vice versa, climate change is one of these phenomena which follows this logic. And it's an unfair one as well, as some countries that have polluted most during their development, on which they have extracted serious benefits, have contributed more to this global phenomenon, and this will then affect disproportionately the different localities around the world. It's clear now that the climate change poses a clear danger to lives and livelihoods across Africa. The climate crisis is not only threatening to our ecosystem, but are also undermining fundamental rights, widening inequalities, and creating new injustices. This is why UNESCO believes that ethical imperative must guide action. Beyond the political and legal agreements essential to preparing for the future, change involves a shift in mindset, a different way of considering the place of humans in nature, and there is no doubt that the media has a vital role to play in that regard. Convinced that the necessary paradigm shift requires a change in mindset and a different way of looking at the relationship between humans and nature, UNESCO has brought together all its action on these issues under the banner, Changing Minds, Not the Climate, because it is in minds that the virtual circles and developments must be first set in motion. This calls for collective responsibility in the mobilization of everyone, including ordinary citizens, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and committed civil society players. In October 2017, in order to keep pace with the latest international discussions, UNESCO adopted the Strategy for Action on Climate Change, which takes into account the results and recommendations of the COP22. The strategy, defined for a 3-year period, enabled members to make more progress towards achieving the goals set out in the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. UNESCO also published a Declaration of Ethical Principles in relation to climate change during the 13th session of UNESCO General Conference. This declaration and the strategy had set out to increase initiatives aimed at addressing global warming by state members and UNESCO in the area of biosphere preservation, water conservation, and energy transition. As you may know, UNESCO is the UN custodian agency for sustainable development goals indicated 16.10, which aims to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels for the adoption and implementation of constitutional, statutory, and policy which guarantees public access to information. Media is not only essential in guaranteeing accountability and transparency, but fundamental for citizens to make informed decisions and therefore actively participate in the country's path towards peace, stability, and prosperity. excellency in strengthening environmental journalism. This will be crucial in the future in tackling climate change in the region. The hope is that the university will grow and become a reference in training journalists in environmental journalism, on which other universities could inspire themselves, and thus build a strong African media environment in climate change reporting. Not only could that contribute in producing a new generation of journalists with strong capacities in climate change reporting and investigating, but it could inspire governments across Africa and all over the world to strengthen their efforts towards promoting environmental change and tackle its effect. Climate change is urgent, and as we recognize that it will have considerable effect on the stability of the region and the life of all, we hope that through initiatives such as the Promoting Excellence in Journalism Education in Africa initiative, more climate journalists will emerge from the region and cover the best interests of the population. To change the minds of all, media is essential. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I think it has a feedback. Thank you so much. Let us appreciate him once again. Yes, I think we're really doing well, and we do not take it for granted to have our well of wisdom today with us in the same house, under the same roof. And before we proceed to the next speaker, guys, there is something that he has mentioned, and I think it is an opportunity that we have. They have a specific platform for journalism, because UNESCO, the E is for education, right? And these are areas as journalists we should target and aim to reach at. Remember, as students from Tangaza University College, Institute of Social Communication to be particular, we are not aiming for little things, right? We are aiming to work with great organizations. We are aiming to go out there and make a big impact. And these are the areas to go and research and seek opportunities that we can fill. This with Timona.